Funding for Detroit Performs is provided by Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding is also provided by the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs and the National Endowment for the Arts, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Detroit Performs Season 7 is filled with some of the most remarkable artists and organizations around the D. Today, we're celebrating their talents by gathering up some of our favorite segments. Let's get to our first segment. University of Michigan students are bringing environmental issues to light by creating murals around our community. We met at one of the groups whose focus was on the pollution damaging the 48217 area.
Our community, 48217, is known for its stink.
This is the most polluted zip code in the state of Michigan.
Our community should not be casualties for industry's greed.
Based on the recent election and funding for Great Lakes environmental issues, last year and the call for new courses, I decided it was good timing for us to get the students out and partner with some local communities to bring in, environmental issues more out into the public sphere.
This isn't our voice, this is the community's voice. We go to school at University of Michigan, we don't live here, and we are painting this mural, but we can only learn from the people that live here because this is really their situation.
The mural came about after I was asked to do what we call toxic tours by the University of Michigan. And I took a group of students and some professors on a tour around the industry that has been plaguing our community and been one of our challenges for years with their emissions of pollution that is impacting my community.
Miss Teresa Landrum is extremely passionate and inspiring, and so I thought she'd be a perfect person to connect with for this class.
This is one of the first African American establishments after World War II, but I grew up in this. I've always noticed the smells, so we accepted it as a norm, but it's not normal. I really feel disheartened that this has gone on so long from the industries and nobody paid attention. That minority, low-income communities are being impacted so severely by these industries that pollute.
Residents in this area, they're fighting a system that allows them to be in sacrifice zone. And they're not doing good because their lives are inundated with the pollution and the health impacts from all of it.
Students have certainly noticed, you know, depending on which way the wind is blowing, you'll notice more odor than other days. But to hear the stories of, you know, particulates that are, you know, covering cars, and it's not hard to imagine covering lungs.
The pollution that is coming from these surrounding industries is having a serious impact on our health. We see a high rate of lung cancer in this area. We see a high rate of COPD in this area. We have a high rate of asthma among our children as well as adults. Working with these students have been wonderful because after the toxic tour, they said, what can we do? They decided among themselves that we need to do something.
It's part of a growing environmental awareness that students have to go through, and how can they become more empathetic to the folks that are living with the pollution, because we're all taking part in this, because we're all, you know, living with cars, and, you know, we all use electricity, and so pollution is just, it's hidden from most of us most of the time.
A lot of these situations are in communities of color, communities of low income, and so really wanted to target the injustices that lie there, and Ms. Landrum helped us a lot with that.
This mural speaks because it gives us a voice. It creates conversation. People are stopping and asking, well, what is the mural about? How did it come about? Well, then we can discuss, well, there's been pollution issues out here all the time.
I was born and raised out here, but I've also been working with the community for about 15 years. So in all of these years of working together, this mural is one of the things that has been one of the high points.
It's just about initiating change as best as a mural can within the community, basically to promote justice. Also, it was really important for us for the community members to be able to see themselves and their situations within the mural. On the very far left, we have kind of the silhouette of the looming industry, and coming out of that is the monster of industry who has the hazardous sign for the eyes. The smoke coming out of his mouth is the basically representation of the pollution on his back with the industry as well. And then we have the three figures, and we wanted to represent different age groups from the community. That was really important to us as well, and specifically also representing women, because Ms. Landrum was saying that a lot of the people that are involved in this fight are women, and they're all in a fight towards stopping this big monster of industry and really stating their claim on the power that they have with their voice. And then the sunflowers that we have are kind of like a representation of more of a brighter hope. Ms. Landrum was telling us how they have done protests before with sunflowers on their signs with messages in between, so we took that and added it in and then mirrored that with the gears on the other side.
The images speak to me because it lets you know that community, we're becoming aware and we're tired, and it addresses that we need somebody to stand up and say, stop. We're telling the companies, we're telling the city, we're telling the state, we're telling the federal government, work with us and help stop this pollution and industry from encroaching more and more on communities.
I hope that the people can just really see that their fight is recognized and that there are people who are with them, supporting them, and that their work every day matters.
Inspiring change is, making topics visible and letting people see and understand it and acknowledge that there is a problem, and how can they come together to help fight it. And Teresa will continue to be, I'm sure, a strong voice in the community.
Next up, we are back at Tipping Point Theater, where they allowed us in on the rehearsal of the play, Every Brilliant Thing, which generates important conversations around mental health. Take a look.
The list began after her first attempt. A list of everything brilliant about the world, everything worth living for. Number 1, ice cream. Number 2,
depression and suicide are things that a lot more people deal with than I think we realize.
It's easier to say that it's a play about depression, but I think it's about finding things that are hopeful.
It is common for the children of suicides to blame themselves. It's natural.
It's definitely the most important piece of theater I've ever done.
No matter how much you know that you're not to blame, you can't help but feel that you failed them. It's not fair to feel that way, but it's natural.
Every Brilliant Thing is a list started by a 7-year-old in order to help his mother. Number 2, water fights.
Number 10, kind old people who aren't weird and don't smell unusual.
We actually have 2 actors playing the role, both a man and a woman, depending on the night you come, but I'm going to explain it this way. The mother has tried to commit death by suicide, and the boy decides at that moment, because he needs a way to process this, to create a list of every brilliant thing in the world, everything worth living for his mom. And when she gets home, he gives her the list, and he knows she's read it because she checks his spelling. And that's the first of many light moments that show you that nobody has a day or their life is just depressing moment after depressing moment. There's always some levity in it. There's always something that happens. And he keeps revisiting the list at both high and low moments in his life. And the real story is there's always something brilliant. There's always something that you can look to, at any low point in your life.
Number 23. Inspector Gadget. Oh, 24.
Spaghetti with meatballs.
25.
Everyone in their life battles these type of feelings at some point. And so I think everyone in the audience will either be going through something or they will be helping someone who's going through something. That's just the reality of who we are as human beings. So everyone will be able to relate to this story.
The weight of the issues that it's dealing with and the fact that it deals with them gently and with a great deal of care and a great deal of humor, it's just brilliant. From the first line to the last moment, the way that it's constructed is a theatrical experience that is very, very rare. And when something bad happens, the body feels it before the brain can know what's happening. It's a survival mechanism. The stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, flood your system. It feels like a trapdoor opening beneath you. Fight or flight or stand as still as you can. I stood very still.
We're really charged as actors in this show to help people remember why it's good to be living right now, right here. So it's a really, really important piece.
I mean, the idea that a list of nice things could somehow combat hardwired depression was embarrassingly naive. I was so upset, I went to rip the list in half when I noticed someone else's handwriting.
I don't think there's anybody out there that doesn't have someone in their life that is dealing to some extent with some behavioral health challenges, whether it be depression or otherwise. And I think a lot of people don't know how to handle that. They don't know how to talk about it. It's not as simple as, hey, just be happy. And that's part of the reason we partnered with St. Mary Mercy Hospital for this production, is to say, hey, here's some resources that are out there, whether you're a person that's dealing with depression or you're a person whose family member or friend is dealing with depression.
The show is a very nice portrayal of a child who grows into an adult whose mother is suffering from depression and suicide attempts, and it shows how it affects him, how it affects his relationships growing up, and how as a child, and even as an adult, he understands that mental illness.
On her mirror was 575.
Piglets.
And on the kettle was 654.
Marlon Brando.
And on her bed was number 11.
Bed.
Each morning, outside my door, I would find a small stack of yellow squares of paper. So I became more inventive.
By the show's end, he has reached 1 million things. But the problem is, even 1 million brilliant things, that's not going to treat the depression. The proper treatment for depression is the psychotherapy, the medication, the treatment that we have in place that so many people really either don't know about or don't pursue for whatever reason.
I think when we're really serious about something, it seems untouchable, and people become uncomfortable, and they don't really want to look at something that's so heavy. But if we can remember that there's levity and joy dancing around even the most serious of items, then it makes it a lot more approachable.
I think it's very important to keep in mind that we are all human, and humans are imperfect. Mental illness is something we often take so seriously, it's almost too serious. We don't want to go anywhere near it. When we use humor as an approach, it softens it and makes it more accessible to people. So we are able to talk about it and help to remove the stigma associated with it.
Great. I am going to stop you. There is only one hard and fast rule when euthanizing the beloved pet of a small child, and that is no smiling. So other than that, it's going really well. I think we can do this.
What's the most amazing about this is it's the exact same script for both actors, and it is a completely different show. The tone is different, the feel is different, but the message stays the same.
And that was my experience of death. A loved one becoming an object and being taken away forever.
And also, I love the audience interaction component. The audience comes in and they're our scene partner, and we get to put our trust in a new group of people every day, and that's awesome.
Are you saying that this book, caused people to take their own lives? No. Yes. Yes. Huh. And you would like us to read that book? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, my lecturer!
It gets people leaning in and gets people listening and gets people feeling like they're part of the journey that the actor's taking. And I think that really leads to a lot of meaningful conversations when people walk out at the end of the show, now armed with some context around depression.
I have a piece of advice for anyone who's been contemplating suicide. It's really simple advice, it's this. Don't do it. Things get better. They don't always get brilliant, but they get better.
Next up, artist Gail Rosenblum Kaplan works with local schools' curriculums to develop murals that will be displayed in the Detroit Public Library. We caught up with Gail and her crew as they worked with McDowell Preparatory Academy in Detroit.
Art is an amazing learning tool.
It's a release, it's a form of expression.
Art is really fun.
I can express myself.
You get to show your actual personality into the whole picture.
I think it taps into other forms of intelligences. It's like if you can be creative with your hands and with your eyes and in making art, you can also be creative in the choices that you make with your life. Our kids' potential is just unlimited.
The project was created, Barbara Cohn is a woman who founded a tour program for the Detroit Public Library. And she was very unhappy that the children's reading room was really not very inviting. Several people had mentioned the work of Donnie Katsir and myself. I said, you know, it's great when you can involve the kids in the schools to create the art, because that's really who you're trying to bring to the library.
So far, we've spelled the word manufacturer. We've still got the ing to do. We've got our word agriculture, and we've got our word up here, which is tourism. 3 huge parts of Michigan's economy.
We're really trying to get the kids to think about literacy and learning, so that's why we called it Literacy and Learning Installation. The artwork is created by the kids, but they have actually, in their schools, done curriculum based on the different themes. So every school had a different concept. Today we're at McDowell, which is a public charter school, and we wanted them to actually choose the unit that they wanted to study or that they were already doing as part of the curriculum and give it a creative twist.
We wanted to have our scholars involved in this project because it immersed social studies and science and the arts all at the same time. We came up with a few ideas. We decided on Michigan because we wanted our kids to just have this sense of ownership and be proud of the city that Detroit is and is growing to be, and also just be proud of Michigan overall and maybe get adventurous and want to explore more.
A lot of times, you know, you ask scholars where they live and they're like, United States. Yes, we know that, right? But it's so important to build that pride within scholars to know, I live in Michigan, I live in Detroit, I live in the Motor City, to be able to speak intellectually about where they live, and also just to have that appreciation for their state and so many things that are here.
What do we make in Detroit? What are we known for? Cars. So you have a car here. So one of our artists did a car.
Kids were asked to do drawings that represented Michigan. So some of the kids highlighted the GM building. We have the Spirit of Detroit sculpture. They drew pictures of the zoo. They drew pictures of what they've experienced in Detroit. They drew pictures of the waterfront. Very common theme was the Joe Louis Fist. Kids love sports, and Michigan has all these great sports teams. You know, even if they're not winning all the time, kids love sports.
We do have a huge number of universities, community colleges in Michigan, so all of you should be thinking about which one of those you are shooting your dreams for.
McDowell School does a big push on talking about college. So in our mosaic, the kids did drawings of the different universities. So we really tried to encourage the kids to really go from the city of Detroit to up north. We have the state bird, which is the robin. We have the apple blossom, which is the state flower. We have the white pine tree. So we had over 500 drawings done by the kids. So we really are using their drawings of those things. These are the kids' artwork, and that's what makes the pieces so charming in the mosaics.
My teacher, she said just think of something that you might draw, and I thought of this because it's a cool picture and it's a pretty picture.
I designed a train over a city with an American flag on the building.
So I tried to take the most common themes and I put them into a collage, and then Donnie Katsir, who's my glass mosaic partner, who I've worked with for 18 years, we took those drawings and assembled them into like a master drawing, and we enlarged it to a 3-foot by 7-foot board, and we outlined it. We took the outline and we did the outline in glass. We work in a stained glass medium. Donnie, my partner, cut all of the glass into strips, and then we bring the strips into the school. A lot of times kids, they don't always want to draw, they don't always want to paint, but when you tell them they're cutting glass, I have the kids lined up to cut glass. It's not so dangerous. The kids are using a special cutter, they're careful, but they can actually use this clipper to actually cut the glass. And the kids are really excited by the physicality of it. And then they glue them into place. Because we've already outlined it, they're kind of filling in the colors. And at the end of the day, working with 300 kids, 400 kids, I tell them if I were in my own studio working on this, it would take me a few months. But by working as a community in the arts, that we're really working as one group. And I ask the kids to come at the end of the day to see the finished piece. And by the end of the day, the entire mosaic is done.
I think that people do a good job because I never knew that artists can do that, and it's cool because I never did it before.
We worked together like really good because I was with my friends and we had a great time.
It's one more way of learning is by using the art to draw the images. One more way of reinforcing. You know, we drew images of cherries and apple trees. I mean, it's just a tree, but it shows that this is industry, this is commerce, this is what we do in Michigan. So by studying this with the goal of doing an artwork and their images being included in the artwork, it makes the kids excited to learn their curriculum.
I would say the number one thing I've seen is that scholars are asking so many more questions. So it's sparked an interest for more information.
Through this art project, it's really interesting to see just like what things kids latched on to from particular lessons. One kid's still talking about a Sleeping Bear Dunes legend that they read like 3 months later, and that's what she chose to draw. And it's now actually in the mural. We visited an orchard, so it was great to see what an impact that had on a lot of them as well.
When you learn something new that you never learned before, you understand it more and you learn how to do it more.
I learned that there are a lot of stuff in Michigan.
I didn't know Michigan was the best state.
Very few of our schools in Detroit right now have art. So this was a great way of giving exposure to the arts and showing the power of the arts because the kids are really excited with what they're doing.
For all of our teachers and our staff, it showed that our kids are totally capable of making that art connection. In terms of the drawings and everything else, it was like this easier connection that we could use all the time.
Grows their confidence tremendously so that they know my learning is important. My efforts are important, and I can make a beautiful piece of art because of it.
This project right now is really exciting because the Detroit Public Library is in a city where the city itself is coming back to life. And we're part of it. What we're doing in the children's reading room is part of it. You know, these kids are part of the experience, and as an artist, I'm bringing people together. And I think it's just, you know, we're at the right time, at the right place to really shine and show how the arts are really taking center stage.
Humans are innately creative, and the arts express our humanity.
The arts are an opportunity to know other people better.
If we don't have arts, we don't really have a soul. So they're just absolutely vital to our community.
The arts has helped with the resurgence of Detroit. It's changed the perception of Detroit.
Detroit artists are our heroes. They are the inspiration for our canvases and melodies.
The arts and creative expression have been a key and core part of the development of the city, of the reputation of the city.
You walk the streets of Detroit and you feel vitality, you feel creativity.
They don't just dream for you, they sing for you and string for you.
They reflect back their experiences, but they also reflect back our society and things that are happening.
They sonnet you and read to you. They dance for you and paint for you.
Detroit is deep down in its roots, in its soul, is this expression of contemporary life, of what art and technology can do to express that and to transform it. And you see it across the board in the Detroit metropolitan area.
reveal in art their pain to you. Art takes on the wounds of our mistakes.
Art connects you with your culture and history because that's what art is.
Regurgitates our hurt in ways only creative souls could fathom.
When we say the purity in the arts, we really are talking about authenticity.
Art is the umbrella through our storms, the thing that makes our crazy normal. It's in everything we see. Art is everything we do. It's in all the things we hear. Art is the comfort for our fears and the shoulder for our tears.
Artists are able to help channel that creativity into ways that can lift up what's happening in the community and maybe offer a sense of inspiration for what else can be.
The arts are fundamental because they're so flexible.
They make the place the place. They help bring out what's authentic about a community. They help define what's special about a community. And so then they attract people to want to learn about it and be part of it.
Detroit loves its art. Detroit is very proud of its culture.
Detroit artists leave us with their soul, and it's the art they leave behind that keeps us whole.
And that wraps it up for this best of edition of Detroit Performs. As always, for more arts and culture, head to DetroitPerforms.org, where you'll find featured videos, blogs, and information on upcoming arts events. Also, check us out on Facebook and Twitter. And keep watching every week to see more astounding artists we're so lucky to have in the D. Until next Tuesday, get out there and show the world how Detroit performs, y'all. I'm DJ Oliver. Thanks for watching, guys.
Funding for Detroit Performs is provided by Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta Faucets, Craft-Made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding is also provided by the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs and the National Endowment for the Arts, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.